His Excellency Mr. Muhammadu Bamba Diop, outgoing Chair of the Bureau of the 54th Session of Conference of Ministers, Excellency Mr. Antonio Pedro, ECA Acting Executive Secretary, Honorable Ministers from Member States, Heads of UN agencies, distinguished ambassadors, diplomats, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the people and government of Ethiopia, I warmly welcome both virtual and in-person participants to Ethiopia, a land of rich history and wonders. It is also a great privilege and honor to welcome you all to the 55th Conference of Ministers of Finance and Economic Planning, where we deliberate on Africa's state of economic and social development and regional integration. I would like to thank the Commission for facilitating this important event among African Ministers of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, representatives of member states, entities of the United Nations system, Pan-African financial institutions, African academic and research institutions, development partners, and intergovernmental organizations. The theme of this session is Recovery and Transformation in Africa to Reduce Inequalities and Vulnerabilities. It underlines that Africa has a lot to do to resolve its socio-economic challenges, including the widening income inequalities and extreme poverty across the continent. Excellencies, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, as you may recall, most African economies had been doing so well in the past few decades that we were on track to meet most of the targets in SDG until multiple global and internal shocks threatened to unravel several years of socio-economic gains. Until 2019, Africa was home to the world's fastest growing economies, a growth fueled partly by favorable terms of trade, better macroeconomic management, and growing investment. The advent of the COVID-19 changed this success story dramatically. Millions of Africans has been pushed into poverty, while millions more are at risk of falling into extreme poverty due to disruptions in the global economy precipitated by the war in Ukraine and the frequency of extreme weathers caused by climate change. The war in Eastern Europe disrupted global value chains, led to a spike in key commodity prices such as fuel, edible oil, wheat, fertilizer, as well as tightening of monetary policies in developed countries are leading to an increase in global lending rates. Climate change-induced droughts, flood and erratic rain patterns are not only disrupting economic activities and productivities, but also is endangering millions of lives in our continent. The combined impact of the multiple and recurring global shocks are causing hardships unprecedented in recent memory and led to significant liquidity crunches in the economies of many African countries. Excellencies, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, the immediate and long-term consequences of COVID-19 and the global economic and security crisis are a wake-up call for Africa to rethink its development paradigm and seek homegrown solutions before the crisis engulfs us all. Addressing the multiple economic challenges of Africa requires a collaborative and concentrated effort, which should be people-focused, sustainable in policy measures, and inclusive enough in addressing the most vulnerable people. Our approach to address economic shocks and poverty alleviation should balance between short-term response measures and lasting preventive solutions. Our recovery and transformational efforts should target the most vulnerable populations of our society. We should strive to reduce the prevailing income and wealth inequality as well as extreme poverty. Most importantly, our economies need to adapt and grow in complexity, in value addition and diversification so that Africa's regional integration becomes an economic force to withstand future shocks. We all know that Africa is a continent of unlimited possibilities, untapped potential, and enormous opportunities that are yet to be seized and exploited. Let us make a concerted effort to focus on these blessings than count on our setbacks. For example, as you all know, public finance is an effective instrument to tackle widening income inequality and reducing poverty through redistributive policies, which we have not utilized to the full in our respective countries. Our tax efforts are still low and could be improved further to mobilize billions of dollars to finance critical public service programs such as infrastructure, education, health, and social protection schemes. Modernizing the tax system has multifaceted advantage if it is properly designed and well implemented. In the face of mounting global crises, which are testing the economically advanced countries, creating wealth and increasing domestic resource is not an option for Africa. It is a necessity action to be taken more seriously. A structural transformation of our economies is highly important, mainly to lay the economy on a strong foundation and create decent jobs. Excellencies, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Ethiopia is one of the most recent examples of resilience in the face of multiple shocks. The current government of Ethiopia launched the homegrown economic reform in 2018 to ensure a macroeconomic stability, to increase ease of doing business, and addressing institutional constraints for inclusive and private sector-led growth. Unfortunately, right after launching the reform has faced unexpected obstacles due to the outbreak of conflict in the northern part of Ethiopia, the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change-induced shocks such as drought and locust invasion in some part of the country, and recently also the conflict in Ukraine is affecting significantly our external position. Amidst these internal and external shocks, the government exerted maximum effort to take the reform agenda forward and achieved remarkable results, including positive per capita income growth, better debt management, improved FDI flows, and export performance, as well as privatization of public enterprises and liberalization of selected sectors, which have boosted private sector participation in the economy. We also improved our domestic resource mobilization capacity through reforms in tax policies, tax administration, tax rates, and application of information technologies. In spite of these positive gains, most of the macroeconomic imbalance, such as fiscal deficit, foreign exchange shortage, inflation, and accumulated debt remain stern economic setbacks and challenges. We have therefore continued working on the second homegrown economic reform to consolidate the gains and address current and emerging macroeconomic imbalances and challenges. Furthermore, as we work together towards peace consolidation, our reforms also focus on paving the way for equitable and inclusive post-conflict recovery that will contribute toward strengthening social cohesion among all Ethiopians. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as Africans, it is important to recognize that we share the same destiny, and divided we remain fragmented, but united we rise strong and well integrated. Big achievement emanate from making wise use of our available resources and opportunities at hand. The steps we take together, both as individual countries and as a continent, will guarantee us a better and prosperous future. The recent experience of my country on improving agricultural productivity to achieve food sovereignty is a prime example of exploiting collective wisdom of African stakeholders. I call upon all my fellow Africans and partners to concentrate our untapped potential to transform our continent and eliminate undeserved poverty. I wish you a fruitful deliberations, and I thank you all.